to take because the stickers are on.
Take,
Oh, I mean, that hasn't been a problem in the past.
I was going to say, I'll explain. You can still take. You know, the stickers are there to identify, here's where to go to take them. You know this, so you can see exactly what to take.
I haven't needed that in the past.
This is true. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Good morning, Alan.
You might appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it's recorded.
I do the job there for you. Oh my gosh.
Who came up with this?
Who? Richard. Buck. Nice.
I've been asking for input.
That's great. Alan, you are a talented man. Very cute. All right. Let us begin. All right, Rabbosai, good morning. Let's begin. Let's begin. We are picking up today on page Pei Dalid. We are in the midst of Perek Tes. Shema Tomar. Just remember again, in yesterday's shir, we remember the title of this chapter is we're talking about the things or the character traits, lifestyle choices, which prevent a person from acquiring the midah of zrizus. So yesterday what we started speaking about is a fascinating topic regarding unfounded anxiety. Unfounded anxiety. That a person has anxiety about everything that could go wrong. It's too hot, it's too cold, there's going to be lions on the road. So the Ramchal explained that unfounded anxiety ultimately leads to just paralysis, life paralysis. You can't do anything, you can't move anywhere, and that leads to inaction. That ultimately leads to atzlos. He said furthermore, the other piece that he said, which is very profound, is that sometimes this anxiety is a result of chet. That a person who is solid in their relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a person ultimately, again, who is in a good place with their ruchnios, by definition has a sense of confidence. Knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with them, knows that HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls everything, and that confidence gives them the ability to move their lives forward. Sometimes when a person has this unfounded anxiety about anything and everything, says Ramchal, that's representative of just there's something missing in my ruchnius. There's something missing in my confidence. There's something missing in my ruchnius, and that ultimately, again, we see the cascade effect that ultimately breeds a level of atzlos, which ultimately prevents zrizus. Shema Tomar. But 1 second. Maybe you'll say, Hari matzinu shechayvu chacham b'chomakum shishmar adam atzmo shmira me'ula v'lo yasim atzmo b'sakana afiluhu tzadik ubal maisim. But we find Chazal tell us to be careful, right? So the Ramchal sounds like he's saying over here that kind of throw caution to the wind, right? Don't worry, don't get held back by worrying about stuff. But 1 second, Chazal told us to worry about stuff, right? And in fact, they told us that a person who is a Bal Machshava, even if a person is a tzaddik and Bal Maisim Tovim, a person has to be concerned about the what ifs of life. Va'amru hakol b'dei shamayim chutz mitzinim pachim. Chazal said everything is in the hands of heaven except for what? Tzinim pachim. Tzinim pachim means chills and fever, which is another way of saying you have to take care of your health. Right? You have to take care of your health. Right? You have to don't go out of the house with wet hair. Right? As everyone knows, a very important piece of medical advice. Right? So meaning you have to go ahead and take care of your own health. And if you don't take care of your own health, if you don't take the necessary measures, that's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, that's you. So you see that Chazal tell us that we have to be vigilant in the different potential dangers that lurk around us. Umikra Kasuv, Unishmartem ma'od lenafshosechem. The pasuk says, "Be very careful with your life," which tells you what? Take adequate measures to ensure that you do not put yourself in harm's way. So we see that again, Chazal charge us with making good decisions that take into account our general well-being. Hari she'in lahachlit habitachon. Hari she'in lahachlit habitachon hazeh al kol panim v'hasam amru v'afilu dvar mitzvah. So you see again that Chazal tell us we don't just kind of go blindly and do anything and everything, even if it's for something meaningful and good. Even if I'm in a good place with my ruchnios, it is my job to be vigilant about my health. It's my job to be vigilant about my well-being. It's my job to make sure that I'm not putting myself in harm's way. So listen to what he says. This is incredible. Da ki yesh yira v'yesh yira. Says Ramchal. There's fear or concern, and there's fear and concern. Yesh yira ru'uya. There is a fear that is grounded and legitimate. V'yesh yira shota. And then there is foolish fear. There's foolish fear. Yesh bitachon. V'yesh hololus. There's bitachon, right? The person has faith. And then there's foolishness. There's foolishness. So both say, see here these incredible distinctions. There's yira and there's yira. There's proper yira, which is what we'll say, in life, everybody, you have to have some level of anxiety, right? If a person doesn't have any anxiety in life, that's a problem, right? Think about this for just a moment. If you have no anxiety in life, then what? Then you'll run across the street without looking both ways, right? I just heard this past Shabbos. David and I were together at a Chai Lifeline Shabbaton. Wonderful therapist Shmuel Silber was running a session about therapy, and he mamish spoke about this concept. He's like, everyone thinks that you're not supposed to have any anxiety, but he says, of course you have to have anxiety. Everybody has to have some level of anxiety. And again, he gave the mashal, right? If you would have no level of anxiety, you would run across the street without looking both ways, right? That's what the Ramchal is saying. Yesh yira v'yesh yira. There's proper anxiety and fear, right? And there's improper anxiety and fear. So proper anxiety and meaning proper anxiety and fear teaches me that I should be fearful of certain things and therefore take proper action. But then there's just inappropriate anxiety, which is the anxiety that doesn't help anything and just totally paralyzes me. There's bitachon, and that bitachon gives a person confidence to go ahead and do what they have to do. And then there's hololus. Hololus means a foolishness of thinking. Well, say I'll give you, and again, I don't know that everybody's going to agree with this mashal, but going skydiving and thinking to yourself, you know what, the Rebbe Shalom loves me. He's going to take care of me. Of course, he's never going to let anything bad happen to me. No, excuse me, you're doing something ridiculously risky, unnecessary. You don't have to put yourself in that particular matzav. So no, to say that I'm going to do this because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got my back, like you're the biggest maimin in the world because you're going skydiving, that's hololus. That's foolishness. Again, it's just my take on this. If you could ask someone else about skydiving. Right? But meaning, see, you hear that distinction? So there's proper anxiety. There's proper anxiety that ultimately, again, causes a person to be vigilant about life. And then there's inappropriate anxiety, which prevents a person from moving forward. There's proper bitachon, which gives a person confidence to do what they have to do. And there's inappropriate bitachon, which allows a person to engage in reckless behavior, thinking somehow that God has their back no matter what. Ki hine ha'adon baruch hu, asa esa adam bal seichel, nachon usvar nechocha, l'sheyinhag asmo al derech tov, v'yishamer min hadvarim hamazik, and asher nivru la'ano sharshem. But says is incredible peace. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a person with a seichel, and that seichel allows me to have the foresight and the wisdom to know to avoid bad things. Dangerous things. The Rebbe say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu pre-programmed us the same way animals have instinct to avoid danger. We also have instinct like that, to be able to identify situations that are not good, we don't always listen to it, not good, harmful, detrimental, and avoid. And someone who ignores that instinct and places himself in danger under some type of false machshava that because he's a Baal Bitachon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to protect him even from foolish things in which he is proactively placing himself in harm's way. That's not Bitachon. That's hololus. That's foolishness. V'hinehu chote b'mashu osen neged ritzon habari yisbarach shemo. And in fact, not only is it not Bitachon, but it's sinning. It's sinning because ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want us to put ourselves in danger. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want us to put ourselves in difficult or harmful circumstances or situations. And therefore, if we do that under the false premise that somehow my bitachon is going to protect me, that is an affront to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sherotze sheyishmar adam es atzmo. Because at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu just wants us to take care and watch out over ourselves. So therefore, again, we'll have to stop over here for today. But therefore, the Ramchal is teaching us really something incredibly amazing. Distinguishing between forms of anxiety, what he calls yira, we'll translate it as anxiety, versus ultimately, again, so there's, as in his words, yesh yira v'yesh bitachon v'yesh hololus. There's good anxiety, which prevents you from making bad decisions. And there's bad anxiety, which makes you anxious about everything and therefore unable to progress or move forward in life. There's bitachon, which tells you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got your back. Do the right things in life, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu has your back. And then there's hololus, which is engaging in reckless, dangerous activity, whether it's physically dangerous or spiritually dangerous, thinking that somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to protect you. Says Ramchal, that's not called bitachon, that's called hololus. Therefore, we'll say we see. So again, just to loop this back, then we really have to stop. So again, so you begin to see that Ramchal says, the pathway to Zrizus absolutely requires proper yira, proper anxiety, and proper bitachon. Inappropriate yira, inappropriate anxiety, ultimately again prevents action, which yields atzlus, which fundamentally derails Zrizus. Right, so we'll stop over here. We'll let Hashem pick up with this machshava tomorrow. Sorry. I didn't mention that. The jury's out on that one. We'll see. All right, we'll say good morning. A beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Chaf 20. We are picking up on Yud Tesam with base 19b, and we're picking up actually at the 2 dots. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 lines up from the bottom, on the bottom of 19b. Both I shared this morning, our Daf Yomi Shurim this throughout Elo are dedicated by Yonasan and Rachel Wolf, Highland Park, New Jersey, in loving memory of Rachel's mother, Chaya Bas Moshe Zichron Livracha, and the Talmud Torah sponsor for the month of Elul is Bennett Goldberg. Dedicated all of the Shurim and Drashos of this month in memory of his parents, Avram Menashe Pinchas, Fegerezel Bas Zelig, and in the hopes that all of the suburban Mishpacha have their tefillos answered over the Yomim Noraim. And with that, let's begin. An incredible sugya today. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon, according from the Mishnah, Reb Shimon Shazuri, Reb Shimon Omrim, Lo Nechlaku, Im Kemat Hamalomer Asher Chataba, Prat Lemesasi. So just to reorient ourselves a little bit again, we had a machlokes in the Mishnah yesterday between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, namely a different case of Safek. In our new case of Safek, what's happened? I have 2 prohibited items in front of me. Whether those prohibited items are chilav and osar, 2 women, a wife who is a nida and a sister, malacha, Shabbos, Yom Kippur, and I know ultimately again that I did something wrong. I just don't know what I did. I'm not sure which avera I committed. Rabbi Eliezer is saying I'm chayv chatos. Rabbi Yoshua is saying that I am pater. Towards the end of the Mishnah quoted Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, who both said that ultimately, again, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua lo nechlaku. I'm just reading from the Mishnah. Lo nechlaku al davar shuhumi shem echad shu chayiv. So Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri hold that the Machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua is not in a situation where the two Averos are of the same category. For example, the example that Rashi gives in the Mishnah is, if I have two trees in front of me, an apple tree and a fig tree, and I know I picked a fruit on Shabbos, I just don't remember if it was from the apple tree or from the fig tree. Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri hold that both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua will agree that what? You're chayiv in that case. Why? Because whether it was an apple or was a fig is somewhat halachically immaterial. It's the same exact malacha. Where do they argue? Says the Gemara. Says the Mishnah. Aman nechluku al davar shehu mishum beis shemus. What do they disagree about? They disagree in a situation where we're talking about two malachas, right? Two distinct acts, two distinct prohibitions. That's really what it is. That's when you have machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Fine. So we'll say that's the backdrop to the Gemara. Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman says as follows: Amar Shmuel, misasik bechalovim va'arayos chayiv. So we'll say this was the top of yesterday's daf. That if a person is misasik, remember again, misasik is the case where I'm actually intending to do something permitted. My intention is to do something permitted, but instead of doing something permitted, I end up doing something prohibited. So comes along Rav Nachman said in Mishmol that misasik by chaylev, consumption of chaylev, and engaging in arayos is chayiv. Why? Shekein nana, because at the end of the day I got hana, and because I received hana, therefore by definition I'm chayiv even if it's misasik. B'Shabbos pater. Shabbos you're pater from melachas machshavas. Sorry. Shabbos you're pater from misasik. Why? Because melachas machshavas asra Torah. Because ultimately by Shabbos you melachas machshavas. Melachas machshavas essentially means premeditated. Premeditated. So halacha l'maisa misasik is the antithesis of premeditated, and therefore again I'm not chayiv on Shabbos. Amalei Rav Nachman. I v'had tinokos dichi misasik dami. We'll say this is an incredible case, but the case of the babies is a case of misasik. Yet utinan. Also listen to this case. Misha hayalo shnei tinokos. Rabbi Yaakov, this is you could use this one. Misha hayalo shnei tinokos echad lamol b'Shabbos ve'echad lamol achar Shabbos. We'll say listen to this. Two babies. One has supposed to have his bris milah on Shabbos. One is supposed to have his bris milah on Sunday. V'shachach. The moel. This is what happens when you go to Kiddush Club, right? V'shachach umal es shal achar Shabbos b'Shabbos. So what happens? The moel mixes up the babies. And what does he do? He gives the Sunday baby a bris milah on Shabbos. We'll say, leaving aside hilchos milah, right? A milah shekovdim zmana is an interesting sugya, but that's not what we're talking about over here. The issue over here is like this. Are you allowed to give her bris milah on Shabbos? Yes, which is an incredible chiddush. Why? Because the act of milah, by definition, is halachically considered shchita. Anything you do on Shabbos which draws blood is a violation of the malacha of shochet. The only reason you're allowed to, so why are you allowed to do a milah on Shabbos? Why? Because the pasuk says, "Ubayom hashmini yimol b'sar lo." So the Gemara darshes, "Bayom hashmini afilu b'Shabbos." So now what happened? I circumcised the wrong baby. So now that I circumcised the wrong baby, there was no mitzvah milah on that child. So by definition, that is a malacha. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatas. Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayiv chatas because again you performed the act of shchita, quote unquote. Rabbi Yeshua poter, and Rabbi Yeshua says you're pater. Why does Rabbi Yeshua say you're pater? Ad kan lo pater Rabbi Yeshua. Ad kan lo pater Rabbi Yeshua el mishum dekasaver ta'abid var mitzvah v'lo asa mitzvah pater. Now we'll say now the reason Rabbi Yeshua holds that you're pater is because this interesting idea that there's almost like an exemption. If somebody was trying to perform a mitzvah, but what? But they messed up and they didn't end up performing the mitzvah, the halach is we don't hold them liable for that. The kasavar tabid var mitzvah lo asa mitzvah pater. Aval misasek, we'll see, you know what that is? It's almost like a form of halachic coverage. It's the same way, leaving aside contemporary legalities. If a doctor in halacha, there's not really a concept. Doctors, for example, are covered. Let's say a doctor kills his patient, chas v'shalom. So again, the halacha says we don't hold him liable. There's no such thing as liability, assuming that he didn't do anything egregious, right? Why? Because otherwise doctors won't practice medicine. Why would anybody want to practice medicine if they could be held liable for each and every little thing? So that's we want people to do mitzvahs. We want people to do mitzvahs. And if, again, people mess up all the time with different things, so l'maisa, again, if you don't provide them some level of coverage from liability, people are going to be reticent to do mitzvahs. So that's Rabbi Yeshua says, in this case, where you circumcised the wrong baby, we're not going to hold you chayiv for violation of Shabbos, because at the end of the day, ta b'dvar mitzvah lo asa mitzvah is pater. But what do you see from here? But it appears to be that based on this, Rabbi Yeshua would hold that you're chayiv by misasek. To which the Gemara says, Amar lo hanach latinokos, leave the baby case aside, because hoil umakalkal bechabura chayiv, misasek bechabura chayiv. So we'll say, so it could be that the baby case is a little bit different. Why? Because remember again, on Hilchos Shabbos, there's a concept of mekalkel. Mekalkel means that any time you do something in a destructive fashion, by definition, you're not chayiv for any resulting malacha. Malacha, by definition, is something constructive. So if you end up doing something destructive, you are not chayiv for that. Since the act of giving a chabura, by definition, is destructive, yet you're chayiv for that, right? If you injure someone and you draw blood, ultimately there's liability for that, even though that is a destructive act. Therefore, misasek bechabura chayiv as well. Therefore, halacha lemaisa, if you were to go to be misasek bechabura, which would be this case of mila, leaving aside the mitzvah piece, you'd be chayiv as well. Eisei Rabbi Yehuda l'Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda omer, afilu miskavein lelaket teinim, veliket anovim veliket teinim. So we'll say, so now comes along Rabbi Yehuda and says as follows. Rabbi Yehuda says, a person had kavana to pick figs, but instead picked grapes. Grapes and picked figs. Shcharos v'liket levanos. So supposed to pick white figs, instead picked dark figs. Right? Levanos v'liket shcharos. So we'll say, in this case over here, so remember again, my machshava is being mixed up, grapes, figs, white figs, dark figs. What's the halacha? Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatas. Rabbi Eliezer says you're chayiv chatas. Rabbi Yeshua poter. Rabbi Yeshua says that you're poter. Ay v'hahacha misaseku. But is this not a case of misasek? Rabbi Yeshua nami lo kapater, ella min mina lemina. And even Rabbi Yeshua holds that you're only pater when ultimately, again, it's two different minim, two different types. Aval bechad mina, but I will say again, if you just ended up doing, you wanted to pick, see Rabbi Yeshua would say in the case of, let's say, the white figs and the dark figs, I wanted to pick white figs, I just ended up picking the dark figs, I feel Rabbi Yeshua mechayiv, and Rabbi Yeshua would say ultimately again that you are chayiv. Amar le shinina. So he said to him, sharp one, shvok masnisin v'tabasrai. Leave aside the Mishnah and come follow me. In other words, let me explain this to you. Hachama askin, what's the case? This is very interesting. Kigon, sha'avad milaket milibo. So let's listen to this. It's a case where the person who was picking the figs or the grapes forgot his original intention. Watch this. Niskavin lalaket anavim v'shachach. So we'll say when he started out on Shabbos morning, right? His intention was to pick grapes. That was his intention. That's a malacha. V'shachach. He forgot his original intention. V'savar te'enim. And then he thought that he wanted to pick figs. And as Rabbi say, his original intention was to pick grapes. He got confused, whatever it was. He wanted to pick grapes. He got confused. He then saw the figs. He decided, you know what, I'm going to pick figs. And then what happens? V'holcha yado al ha'anovim. But then he ends up picking what? He ends up picking the grapes. So we'll say this is fascinating because what happened over here? He ended up doing the very thing that he started out to do, but then forgot that he wanted to do that thing and decided to do something else. So it turns out, right, he wanted to pick grapes. He forgot about the grapes, and when he saw the figs, as he reached for the figs, he ended up picking the grapes. So it turns out that he fulfilled his original machshava, albeit in a certain lapse of awareness. So says the Gemara, what's the halacha? The Rabbi Eliezer savari nasta kavanaso. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yechayiv v'chatos. Why? Yechayiv v'chatos. Why? Because you performed the act of your original intention. What was your original intention? Grapes. You picked grapes. Rabbi Yeshua savari nasta kavanaso. Umachshavto. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, you did not fulfill your kavana and your machshava. Rabbi Yeshua says, since at the time that you were picking, ultimately, again, your kavana was for figs, right? And you did not end up picking figs, even though your original kavana was for grapes. That does not satisfy the kavana criteria for chatos. Top of chaf. Maser Aboshia. So Osher is the kasha. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, Rabbi Shimon Omrim lo nechlaku al davar shumi shem echad shu chayiv. So also remember again, quoting that from the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri and Rabbi Shimon both say that that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua do not disagree in a case al davar shumi shum shem echad. When Rabbi said the confusion is regarding one malacha. That ultimately, again, they'll say that Shechayim. Also, remember again, that was Rashi in the Mishnah. I intended to pick from grapes. I intended to pick, one type of fruits from a tree, and I picked a different type of fruits from the tree. That's called minechad. It's the same halacha of ktsira. So both of them agree. In that case, you'll be chayiv v'chatos. El aman nechlakus. What do they argue about? Al davar shumishum shnei shemos. They argue about what? About something ultimately two different malachas. Two different malachas. Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv. Rabbi Eliezer says that you're chayiv achatos. Rabbi Yeshua pot. Rabbi Yeshua says that you're pater. Rabbi Yehuda my kamer. What is Rabbi Yehuda saying? De pligi binis kavin lelaket anavim velakat teinim shchoros velakat lavanos. Anavim uteinim shechoros ulavanos mainihu. So I'm sorry. So what is Rabbi Yehuda saying? So is Rabbi Yehuda telling me that Allah Chalamaisa, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer do disagree in the case of where I had intention to pick grapes, and instead I picked figs. I wanted to pick black figs, dark figs, and I ended up picking white figs. So the Gemara says, Anavim uteinim, Anavim uteinim shchoros ulavanos mainihu shnei shemos. So we'll say, so those cases are cases ultimately again of shnei shemos, of items ultimately again with two different identities. Hainu Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. So ultimately again, Rabbi Huda is saying the same thing then as Rabbi Shimon Shazuri. So the Gemara says Rabbi Huda ma'as lashma'inon. So what is Rabbi Huda coming to add that Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri didn't already say in the Mishnah? Ela lav misasek iga beinayu. Rather, it must be that the fundamental point of contention between Rabbi Huda and Rabbi Shimon / Rabbi Shimon Shazuri is what the respective shitos hold in the case of misasek. Rabbi Huda savar misasek chayiv. Rabbi Huda will say ultimately that's what? That Allah Chalamaisa, the case of misasek, you are chayiv for that. In other words, even Rabbi Yoshua would agree that you're chayiv for misasek. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri, Savri Misasek Pater, and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri ultimately would say what? That halacha lamaisa you are Pater from Misasek. Lo, to which the Gemara says no. Misasek divrei kol Pater. Everyone agrees that in the case of Misasek, ultimately again you will be Pater. Ubahaka miflagi, and here's what they're arguing about. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri Savar Shachach Melakit Milibo B'Shem Echad. Divrei Akol Chayav. We'll say, let's analyze this for just a moment. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri holds as follows. If you look at Rashi changes the gears a little bit. It's Avad Malaket Milibo B'Shem Echad. Look at this Rashi. This is a fascinating case. Shenis Kavin L'Te'inazu. So we'll say, what's the case? I had intention to pick this fig. V'Shachach. And I forgot. I forgot my original intention. Kasavra Te'ina Acheres Hasmucha La Ba'ina. V'Holcha Yado Ala Rishona. Divrei Akol Chayiv. Hoil ulekach nis kavin tchila, va'ol kisha shachach machshavto lo chashav ela me'osa min ba'atzma. Well, so listen to this. Here's the case. So we'll say in Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's model, everyone will agree in the following case that should be chayiv. What's the case? I have intention to pick a fig. Asran Shabbos Malachav Katsira. What happens? I forget my intention and I end up picking the second fig. Right? I end up picking the second fig. So we'll say, what's the halach over here? Everyone agrees that in that case it'll be chayiv. I didn't fulfill my original intention. The truth is the difference in your original intention versus what you did is immaterial. The fact that you took fig B instead of fig A, that's not called enough of a deviation from your intention to make you pater. So even Rabbi Yeshua would agree that in that case, you will be chayiv. Ki pligi. So what do they argue about? Bishnei shemus. Now we'll say what they argue about is in a case of two different identities. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Bishnei shemus. Shenis kabin l'te'inim. V'shachach. Ukisavar anavim ba'ina. V'halcha yadu alatina. We'll say, where do they argue about? What's the machlokes with Rabbi Yeshua? I had intention to go ahead and pick figs. I forgot, and then what happens? I picked grapes. So we'll say, so I just want to express to you the novelty in this case. So remember again, If you're just a pragmatist, right? So you'll say to yourself, who cares? At the end of the day, what did you do? The malacha of ktsira. I will say it's the same malacha. It's the same malacha. But here's where we come to the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer will agree that halacha l'maisi chayiv. At the end of the day, the fact that you wanted a fig, you took a grape, it's immaterial. At the end of the day, you intended to perform the malacha of ktsira, and what? You performed the malacha of ktsira. Therefore, chayiv chatos. Rabbi Yoshua will say, no. Asher chata ba. Liability for a chatos on Shabbos requires explicit intent for the action you are doing. If you intended to pick figs, but instead you picked grapes, as much as lemais, again, it's the same malacha of ktsira. Your das has not been actualized, and because of that, you are pater from a chatos. That's the machlokes case. Keep ligi b'shnei shemus. Rabbi Huda Savar. Suppose say now the Gemara is saying that's machlokes. Ultimately, again, now there's a further machlokes. Rabbi Huda, Rabbi Shimon, Shazuri, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Huda Savar lo shna b'shem echav lo shna b'shnei shemos. Pligi. Rabbi Huda will hold that halacha l'maisa. He, in his version of the machlokes, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, he holds that they argue both in the case of shem echad as well as shnei shemus. Both in the case of shem echad, where ultimately, again, you wanted to pick this fig, but you ended up picking that fig. He holds still, even in that case, Rabbi Yoshua paters, and still in the case of shnei shemus. So the Gemara says, Rava Amar. Rava says, Likdom ika beinayu. Rava says there's another case that's a nafkamina between the two of them. The case of Likdom. Look at Rashi. This is actually very interesting. Likodem or ika beinayu. Listen to this. Sheniskavin lelaked zu tchila. The achar kach zu. So we'll say my intention was like this. I wanted to go ahead and pick item A first and item B second. The halcha yadu al achrona. I end up picking item B first. Rabbi Shimon Shazuri Savri imi shem echav divrei kol chayiv hoil v'shem echad hein v'sof tarvayu avad v'lo ichpas lan b'maktim hamauchar ki pligi b'shnei shemus. Rabbi Eliezer mechayiv chatas hoil u'lishnei neskavein u'shneim asav lo ichpas lan b'maktim hamauchar v'Rabbi Yeshua poter hoil b'shas lekitas kol achas v'achas lo zehu mechavein havilei kimis asek u'pater. So we'll say, listen to this. So we'll say, so here's the shaila. I intended to pick A and then to pick B. I end up picking B and then picking A. So am I chayiv or not? So we'll say in Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's model, Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's model, it depends. What does it depend on? Is it shem echad or shnei shemos? If it's two figs and you just wanted to pick A and then B, but you ended up picking B and A, what's going to be the halacha? Everyone will agree that you're chayiv, because they will say at the end of the day, your intention was for the same min, and halacha l'maisa, again, the fact that you pick B before A makes no difference. If it's shnei shemos, if it's two different identities, then you'll have the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer will say that you're chayiv v'chatos, right? And Rabbi Yoshua will say that you're pater. That's Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri's model. In Rabbi Yehuda's model, Rashi goes on to say, Rabbi Yehuda savar afilu b'shem echad pligi. Rabbi Yehuda holds that halacha l'maisa, even in a case of shem echad, where I will say again, where you have fig A and fig B, and you picked B before A, and Rabbi Yehuda's model, he would still hold that is also imachlokus between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua. I've had Tanya, but we learn about this is an interesting case. How you the fun of shtei neros? The person had two candles in front of him, dolkos, and they're both burning, right? V'niskavin lechabos zu, v'kiba as zu, lahadlik as zu, v'hidlik as zu, pater. So we'll say, so again, interestingly enough, so what happens? I have two candles in front of me. If I had kavana to go ahead and extinguish one, and I ended up extinguishing another, or to kindle one, and I ended up kindling another, pater. So we'll say in this case, ultimately again, I'll be pater. Rashi says, v'hidlik zu pater, tahainu misasek, lo niskavin ela la'achas v'lo asa, v'asas chaverta. I wanted to light the candle on the left, and instead I lit the candle on the right. So the Gemara is calling it over here misasek, right? I didn't have intention to do the thing that I did, and therefore again I'm pater from chatos. Lahadlik ulechabos, but if my intention was to both kindle and extinguish, so we'll say you're going to see how you could, well, look at Rashi for just a moment. Lahadlik ulechabos is the last of the short lines. Kishahayan ner dolik v'ner kavoy v'niskavi lahadlik zet chila v'achar kach lechabos zeh. The kava ezeh, v'achar chidlik ezeh. So let's listen to this. I have two candles in front of me, right? One is lit and one is extinguished. And my intention was to go ahead and first light the extinguished one and then extinguish the lit one. But I ended up reversing the order. Niskavin lechabos ezeh. I wanted to go and extinguish this one. I'm sorry, I lost the place. I'm sorry. Lahadliku lechabos. I wanted to go ahead and kindle and extinguish the chiba v'hidlik, but I reversed the order and I extinguished and then I kindled. So also listen to this. If I did it b'neshima achas, if I did it with one breath, so both says, so just so you understand how this case is happening over here, the way it's working is you're blowing on these candles, and what's going to end up happening is as follows. When I blow on them, the one that's lit is going to be extinguished, and I'm blowing the flame onto the second one. So everything is happening ultimately again with my breath. So says the Gemara, if I end up doing this b'neshima achas, I'm chayiv, right? But b'shtei neshimas, with two different breaths, pater, ultimately again I will be pater in that case. Look here actually just a moment. In b'neshima achas, first wide line, shenafach umachmas hanaficha kava zeh v'hidlik. So we'll say, so as a result of the one breath, one candle was extinguished, the other one is ignited. So what's the halacha? Chayiv delek alameimar hay mukta v'hay mocher. Now we're going to see in that case there's a simultaneity. Because there's a simultaneity that's occurring, you can't really say that one happened before the other. They both happened at the same time. B'shtei neshimas, but if I ended up doing it in two breaths, then I'm going to be pater wa'irabosai, because I reversed the order. Remember again, what I wanted to do in this particular case was what? I wanted to kindle and extinguish. Instead I end up extinguishing and then kindling. I reversed the order, and therefore with two breaths, and therefore again, halacha lamaisa, I am pater. To which the Gemara says, pshita, that's obvious. Now the tema, no, what would you have thought? Lo is avid machshavtei de halahadlik mei karabai ulabasof lechavos. But one second, I would say, even in the case of one breath, I should be pater. Why? Because my machshava did not materialize. What did I want to do? I wanted to first kindle, and then I wanted to go ahead and extinguish. V'chi avad ma'isa kiba ubasof hidluku ve'ema pater. But one second, but it will say it turned out that ultimately, again, my act of kindling didn't necessarily precede my act of extinguishing. Ve'ema pater, and therefore I should be pater from mechatos. Kamashmon denihidak dumi lo makdim achuri nami lo ma'acher. So it's actually very interesting. Bless you. So we begin to see something fascinating, which is in a case of where you create an order in your mind, as much as we're going to see that in certain circumstances that order is ma'akev, simultaneity does not disrupt the order. Right? Simultaneity still conforms, we say, to your machshava. So for example, in this case over here, where you wanted to kindle and then extinguish, and then what happens? In one breath, you accomplish both. So as much, well, you could say, I should be pater. Why? I didn't do my machshava. I wanted to kindle and then extinguish. There's a sequential order. I didn't do the sequential order. They happen simultaneously. So we see that simultaneity does not derail, does not shter sequence. Simultaneity doesn't shter sequence. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, we view the simultaneity as if my machshava materialized, and therefore I'll be chayiv chatzos. Fascinating case. Tan Rabbanan. Next, hachote gichalim b'Shabbos chayiv chatzos. So say if you shovel coals. Chote literally means shovel coals on Shabbos. What are you shoveling? Rashi says chote hamamali kelim. So I'm taking coals, and ultimately again, or mamali kli changes it to. So right, I'm filling a kli with coals. So I'm shoveling coals into a utensil. So what's the halacha? Chayiv chatos. Ultimately, I will say in this case, I'm chayiv a chatos. Right? Rabbi Shmuel will say, now why is that? The assumption when you shovel coals is what happens. You're taking coals, let's say, from an oven or from somewhere else, and when you put them into a utensil, by definition, there is some level of extinguishing that occurs. Therefore, by definition, you will be chayiv a chatos for that. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar or Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Tzadok, chayiv shtayim. In fact, you're going to be chayiv twice. Why? Number one, because I guess the way it happens when you shovel coals is that what ends up happening is you end up extinguishing the upper coals and igniting the lower coals. So because that, you actually be chayiv two chatos, one for mechaba, one for extinguishing, and one for mavir, one for kindling. So am I asking, what's the case here? My time of demand departed. So we'll say again, if my intention is to kindle and extinguish, then of course I'll be chayiv twice. Why would anyone say that I'm not? Elo delo mechavin lahavir. So we'll say that's maybe the cases where what? My intention was to extinguish, but ultimately again not to kindle. If that's the case, my time of demand mechayiv tarti. But we'll say if it was not my intention to go ahead and kindle, then why would I be chayiv a second chatos? To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Chanina, Dami Tarvayu, what's the case? Kigon shenis kavin lechabal salyonos kadei lahavir hatachtonos. We'll say, what's the case? The case is where when I was shoveling the coals, my intention was to go ahead and extinguish the upper coals in order to ignite the lower coals. Look at Rashi. Kadei lahavir hatachtonos kilomar la'avaras hatachtonos lo havatzarech el lechabuye elyonos haisatz ikar kavanoso. We'll say the truth is, as we're going to see in just a moment, my real kavanah was like this. I don't really need the upper ones to be ignited. I just need I don't need the lower ones to be ignited. I need the upper ones to be extinguished. Shaya nafach, we'll get to that in just a moment. V'tzarech lepechamim v'niskabin lechabal salyonos shayu gazos v'ava b'shiyah d'shiyavara tachtonos niskabin lechibuyon shel elu. So we'll say the way it works is like this. Really what I need is I needed the upper coals to be extinguished. But by definition, in order to make that happen, the lower coals are ignited. Sheniskavin lechabos ha'olyonos kedei lahavires hatachtonos. The Tanakama savar mikalkel b'havara potter. Tanakama holds Rabbi that ultimately again, if you're makalkel b'havara, right? Literally, again, you do a destructive act that results in kindling. Look at Rashi, makalkel b'havara, kigon d'nafach. Nafach is a blacksmith. In order for a blacksmith to do his work, what does he need? He needs hot coals that are not on fire. So he needs the heated coals, but he doesn't want the flame on the coals. So kigon nafachu kida amra b'yochanan b'nafach shanu delo nechale l'nafeach lahavir gichalim. So the blacksmith wants the coals heated up, but he does not want them on fire. So watch this. Says the Gemara, the Tanakama savar mekalkel b'havara pater. He holds ultimately again that mekalkel by havara is going to be pater. But Elazar Rabbi Tzadok Amar chayiv v'chin Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What's the case where this would come up? B'nafach. Ultimately, again, this is a case of a blacksmith, because a blacksmith ultimately, again, what I will say requires. It's interesting. He requires ultimately the heated coals, but he doesn't want the fire. So ultimately, again, what if he wants the upper coals? He'll push the flame down in a way that it ignites the lower coals, but he doesn't really want the lower coals to be ignited. What does he want? He just wants the upper coals extinguished. That's the machlokas. To which the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan ad kan lo niskal satayma shel halacha zu. Up until now, we never understood the svara for this particular halacha. In other words, we never understood the case essentially in which this comes up when shoveling coals and you want the upper coals ignited, the lower coals the upper coals extinguished, the lower coals ignited. We never understood where that case would come up until we finally found this explanation ultimately about the blacksmith. So the Gemara goes weiter. Ami bar Avin, Rabbi Chanina bar Avin, Damri Tarvayu. Sa'ir bar Avin and Rabbi Chanina bar Avin both say, Amud Beis, Kigon shenis kavin lechabos ulahavir. What's the case? Ultimately, again, we had kavanah to extinguish and then to ignite. So look at Rashi. Dinis kavin lechabos ulahavara. Tafilu hachi avara pater tanakama savra like Rabbi Yossi Damri havara lelaviatas. So listen to this. Other possibilities as follows. So remember what we're trying to figure out over here. We're bringing down a case of a person who shovels coals on Shabbos. He's going to be chayiv v'chatos, right? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar holds in Rabbi Elazar tzaddik shechayiv two chatos. One for extinguishing the upper coals, and one for igniting the lower coals. Shabbos says, so where does that come up? So apparently, what's the case where you want to extinguish the upper coals and ignite the lower coals? So far, I've established that what? That is the case ultimately of the blacksmith, and therefore you'll be chayiv two chatos. One for kibui, extinguishing upper coals, one for igniting the lower coals. A second possibility as to where you would come up with two chatos, kigon, shenis kavin lechabos ulahavir. Both say the other possibility is it could also be a case of what? I had kavana, both to go ahead and extinguish as well as to ignite. The Tanakama Savra like Rabbi Yossi Damar Havar Lalav Yatzasa. So both say, so one second. If I go ahead and I have kavana to extinguish and ignite, then what Rabbi say? That's my kavana. Then what? What should I be chayiv? Two chatos. What's the shaila with that? Oh, I'll tell you why it's a shaila. We'll say this is one of the most yisodistic machlokes in by Hilchos Shabbos. And we'll say, remember again, we learn out Lamites Malachas. From where? The juxtaposition of Shabbos to the Mishkan, right? Lamites Malachos are not explicitly spelled out. The only one malacha that is explicitly spelled out in the Torah is Lo Sivaru Eish B'chol Moshe Seichem Yom HaShabbos, Havara. So the shaila is, why is Havara, why is kindling singled out in the Torah? This is a fundamental machlokus by Hilchos Shabbos. Watch this. The Tana Kama Savar Rabbi Yossi de Amar Havar Lelav Yatzasa. Oh, do you know why Havara was singled out? The Bosai to tell you why. Every other malacha, all 38 malachos, if you perform it intentionally, you are chayiv misa. Unintentionally, chayiv chatos, with one exception. Havara. If you kindle a fire, it's only a lav. It's only prohibition. That's right. Not a chayiv misa, not a chayiv chatos, only a lav. How do you know that? That's why the Torah singled it out and reckoned it separately from the other lamites, from the other lamid ches malachos. So therefore, Rabbi say, watch this. Tanakam holds like Rabbi Yossi, and therefore, even in a case where you had kavanah to do havara and nechabe, you had intention to kindle as well as to go ahead and extinguish. How many chatas are you going to be chayiv for? One. Only, right? Only one. Havar l'lav yatzasa. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Saluk, Savalak, Rabbi Nasan, Da'amar, Havar l'chalik yatzasa. He'll say that no, ultimately again, Havar Abosai comes to teach me something else, which is what? Look at Rashi just a moment. Rav Hashem shenes kavin l'chabos, v'lo l'havir elashay odeh shesoft. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, wrong one. So it says the Gemara. So other opinion says Havar l'chalik yatzasa. That why Abosai. So according to the second opinion, why is Havara mentioned separately? Havara is mentioned separately, ultimately, to go ahead and tell you that you are chayiv independently for each and every malacha. And therefore, you're going to say, even in the case of where you had kavara to do havara, as well as mechabe, you're going to be chayiv two chatos. Rava Amar Rava says, lahakdim ika beinayu. Rava says, no, the fundamental machlokes is lahakdim. Rashi says, lahakdim ika beinayu, shenis kavin lahadlik tchila, v'achakach lechabos, v'hidlik v'kiva, Bitchia achos. Tanakama chayish lamukdam umuachar. So the case over here would be where your kavana was to first kindle and then extinguish. And then what happens? You ended up going ahead and reversing the order. So Tanakama holds, I'm just finishing Rashi. So Tanakama chayish lamukdam umuachar. Hilchach letarti leka lechiyuve. Deshem akavat chila lemiftira b'veloklum. So Rava says the machlokes is where your intention was to go ahead and kindle first and extinguish second. You ended up reversing the order. Does reversing of order affect or impact liability? That's the machlokas. Rav Ashi Amar Kegon shenis kavin lechabos v'hoveru me'elehen. So Rav Ashi says, what's the case? What's the machlokas case? Your intention was to go ahead and ignite, or to extinguish, and what ends up happening? The coals end up igniting on their own. So my machshava was to extinguish, but what ends up happening? They end up igniting on their own. So look at Rashi. Rav Ashi Amar shenis kavin lechabos v'lo lahavir. Well, in this case over here, my intention was not to kindle at all. My intention was not to kindle the lower coals, but it turns out that while I was extinguishing the upper coals, the lower coals became ignited. So what's talach? Tanakama Savalak Rabbi Shimon, Damar Davar Shenim Miskavin Pater. Tanakama was like Rabbi Shimon, who holds that what? Davar Shenim Miskavin. When you do a malacha, you don't have attention for the malacha. What's talacha? You're pater. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Saluk, and therefore again, chayiv only one chatas in that case. One chatas for what? For what? For mechabe, because for extinguishing, because that was your intention. When the igniting happens, the kindling happens, that happens on its own. You're not chayiv for that. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Tzadok, Savarla, Rabbi Huda, Damar Darshan, Miskavin chayiv, and Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Tzadok will hold like Rabbi Huda, who holds that what? That even for a Darshan and Miskavin, you are going to be chayiv, and therefore be chayiv two chatos. One for extinguishing, which was your kavana, and one for the havara, the kindling, which although that was not your kavana, that's the davar shenim eskavin, you are still going to be chayiv. Tan Rabbanon, hachote gechalim b'Shabbos l'ischamein bohem, v'uvru me'aleh. Both an interesting case. If you went ahead and you shoveled coals, just for the sake of what? Just for the sake of warming yourself by them. Now, both saying, now in that case over here, what I'm doing is I'm just moving coals from point A to point. The coals are already hot. And all I need is to move the coals to some type of receptacle so that I could use it to warm myself. I don't need them to ignite, right? Because at the end of the day, they're already hot, generating heat. I'm good to go. And what's the halacha? But they become ignited on their own. So we'll say just by tampering with the coals. Obviously, what must have happened over here? There was some type of ember, right, in the coals, and by moving them around, what I ended up doing is I what's the word? Stoked it. Thank you. I stoked the fire, and therefore the coals ignited. But I will say, but again, to be clear, that was not my machshava. All I wanted to do was move the coals from point A to point B to use them to heat myself up with. So what's the halacha? I caused it to ignite. Tani chad chayiv, tani idach pater. We'll say one time, right? One opinion says you're chayiv, one opinion says that you're pater. Hadisan you're chayiv. We'll say why. It's going to what we just said before. Kasavar melacha shenetzricha legufa chayiv Allah. We'll say because one opinion says that a malacha shenetzricha legufa, which I will say means I perform the malacha, but I don't need the malacha. Right? I don't need the malacha. In this case over here, I don't need the coals to ignite. Right? The coals are just fine for my purposes. So I will say, so one opinion says even a malacha shenetzricha legufa, a malacha that you don't need. Right? Halacha lamaisi is still pater. V'hadatana pater kasara malacha shenetzricha legufa pater ala. And the other opinion that says that your pater will say that a malacha shenetzricha legufa, an unnecessary malacha, ultimately again will be pater. Look at Rashi. Shenetzricha legufa kigon zeh shenotzarich la'aviran elis chamim b'techiyasan. We'll say in this case over here, I don't need the coals to ignite. I just need ultimately again for them to be shoveled. Mikol makom yodea hayu sheizbaru va'amenas kein asa v'havile miskavein miu malacha shenetzricha legufa havya hachavara. So we'll say ultimately again. So we'll say this is what's called. This is interesting because you're getting a lot of Hilchos Shabbos here, but this is Hilchos Shabbos from the carbonic liability side, not necessarily from the halacha side. So here you have machlokis malacha shenetzricha legufa. Are you chayiv or not? You perform a malacha, but I don't need the malacha. I don't need the malacha at all. It's not necessary for me. I just want to move the coals from point A to point B. I do not need them to ignite. So am I chayiv or not? Says the Gemara, subject to machlokes. So I will say, just as we close out the parak, remember again, we had a very important machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua on your test on Dalef, namely, again, as opposed to all the Asham Talui cases that we saw before, where whenever I had two items, one was permitted, one was prohibited, and I didn't know did I engage in a Maaseh Issa or not. In this last machlokes, I have two Duvarim Ha'asurim, right? Again, Chelev Nosar, Ishto Nida and Achoso, Malachan Shabbos and Yom Kippur. I know I perform. So we'll say in this case, I know I performed the Maaseh Avera. I know I did something wrong. I just don't know what. What did I do wrong? So Rabbi Eliezer says Yechai v'chatos. Rabbi Yeshua says you're pater. How do we paskin? Writes the Rambam in Hilchos Shkagos. Parak Ches Halacha Hey Chelev v'Nosar lefanov. I have Chelev v'Nosar in front of me. I ate one of them, and I don't know which one I ate. But I will say, here's what I know, which is what both are aser. Ishtonida va'achosim abayis. A man's wife who's in Nida and his sister with him are in the house. The shagag be'achas mehen. He knows he had relations with one of them. Ve'eno yodua eza mehen baal, but he does not know which one he had relations with. Shabbos Yom Kippurim v'asam malacha ben hashmashos shebenein. So I'll say, or Shabbos and Yom Kippur, and I did malacha ben hashmashos. So I'll say again, ben hashmashos, is it day, is it night? Did I do malacha on Yom Kippur or Shabbos? What's the halacha Rabosai? Hare ze pater mi karban ve'eno mevi chatos. Shari Eino Yodea Atzmo Shalcheit Kosheres. We'll say Halach Lamaisa, Raman Paskins like Rabbi Yoshua. That in order to be Chayiv Chatos, you must pass the threshold of Asher Chata Ba. Asher Chata Ba means I know what I did wrong. If at the end of the day I don't know what I did wrong, then halacha l'maisa again, no chatas that is brought. No chatas that is brought. We'll say not only that, says the Rambam, ve'eno mevi asham talui shari yodea bevadai shechata. We'll say furthermore again, no asham talui in that case either. Why not? Asham talui only applies when? When there's doubt if I sinned. Here I know that what? I know that I sinned. I just don't know how I sinned. So we'll say incredible halacha, dramatically incredible halacha. Now he passed like Rabbi Yeshua all the way through in the Mishnah. That Allah L'maisa in this case no chatos, because again, so we'll say this is an incredible case. So you can, this is good. I don't want to say trivia because trivia sounds trivial. This is incredible, like carbonic knowledge. So when can you have a case where ultimately I know for sure I did something wrong accidentally, but l'maiskin absolutely no carbonic liability, neither a chatos nor an asham talui, shtei chatichos. In a case of where I know for sure that I sinned, but I don't know what I sinned, what I did wrong. No chatos, because chatos requires clear knowledge of what I did wrong. No asham talui, because asham talui requires doubt about sin, and here there's no doubt about sin. Therefore, paskin the Rambam, no carbonic liability in this case. Incredible. Hadron Allah, safek achal chelef. We'll say new perek. We're done with asham talui. Now we're entering into the exciting world of eating blood. Achal dam. Achal dam shchita b'vehema b'chayibov. So let's listen to this. I ate blood. Achal dam shchita bebehema v'chayva. Suppose I eat the blood from the slaughter of a behema, a chaya, or an oaf, right? So remember, behema, domesticated animals. Ultimately, again, chaya, non-domesticated animals. Oaf, birds. Bein b'tmein, bein b'tahorin. I will say ultimately again whether it was a behema tahora, behema tmei, it doesn't make any difference. So right, dam nechira. So we'll say that we're going to define all of these terms in the Gemara, but nechira ultimately we remember this from our chulin days. It's like a stabbing, right? A stabbing. So I stab the animal in the simanim and there's blood from that. Dam ikar. I rip out the simanim and there's blood from that. Dam hakaza. Shanashama yotzesba. Or the spurting blood, which is the blood that, we'll say essentially all of these things are going to be lifeblood. So we'll say ultimately again, so remember, we're going to see lifeblood could come out in a variety of different ways. It can either come out through actual shchita, or anytime you do something with the simanim. If you stab the simanim, if you rip out the simanim, this is all called dam shanashama teluyaba, lifeblood. If you consume lifeblood, you are chayiv for the consumption of blood. On the flip side, dam atachol, if you eat the blood of the spleen, or dam halev, or blood of the heart, dam beitzim, or both say this is actually blood that you find in an egg. Right, blood that you find in an egg. So the halal, or dam chagavim, the blood of grasshoppers. Dam atamtis. So I say dam tamtis. Interestingly enough, is the blood that flows out of the animal after the lifeblood. Right. So both say, remember again, the way it works with animals, when you shecht the animal or you initially kill the animal, there's a spurting of lifeblood. After the spurting of lifeblood, there's a general trickle of blood that comes out of the animal afterwards. That's called dam hatamsis. So interestingly enough, the Mishnah says spleen blood, heart blood, egg blood, grasshopper blood, dam hatamsis, what we'll call non-life blood, ein chayav and alav. Ultimately, again, you will not be chayav for the consumption of this blood. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev b'dam hatamsis. Rabbi Yehuda says no, not true. You will be chayav ultimately again for dam tamsis, for the blood which trickles out. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, says just read one line, Tan Rabbanan, Kol dam lo sochelu. Right? So again, the pasuk says you shall not eat any blood. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, what the Mishnah seems to be teaching us is a very important concept, which is that halacha l'maisa, you're only going to be chayiv for it to be called dam hanefesh, right? Lifeblood, right? But anything that is not considered to be lifeblood, right? Ultimately, again, you will not be chayiv for. So Tan Rabbanan, Kol dam lo sochelu. The pasuk says you shall not eat any blood. Shamea ani afilu dam mahal chishtayim, dam beitzim, dam chagavim, dam dogim hayu bichlal. So we'll say I might have thought this includes what? Dam mahal chishtayim. We'll say what's dam mahal chishtayim? Human blood. You might have thought that you're chayiv for blood consumption for eating human blood, or dam beitzim, or the blood inside of eggs, or the blood of grasshoppers, or the blood of fish. I might have thought that all of this you be chayiv as all Talmud Lomar la'of ulabehema. So halacha l'maisa, what type of blood are you chayiv for? Only for the blood that comes from an oaf, a bird, from a behema. Ma oaf behema miyuchadin. But say what's unique about oaf and behema? Sheish ben tuma kala v'tuma chamura. They have tuma kala, tuma chamura. So I said tuma kala. Lower form of tuma means tumas ochlin. They could contract food tuma. Again, we'll discuss all of this. And they also could contract tuma chamura, which is tumas nevela, v'yeshban isser veheter, and ultimately, again, sometimes they are permitted, or that I should say, they're permitted after shchita, prohibited before shchita. Vehein min basar, and they are flesh, they're meat. Afkal, therefore, I will say, in order to fall under the umbrella of prohibition of dam, ultimately, again, they have to be able to possess tumakala, which is tumas ochlin. Ultimately, what? I will exclude the blood of human beings. Why? Because people can contract tumachamura, but ultimately, again, not tumakala. A person could contract tumachamura, which is a tumas meis, but cannot contract tumakala, which is tumas ochel. So we'll stop over here. We'll continue with the Rosh tomorrow, ultimately to explain what is subject to the prohibition of dam and what is not. Eretz Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach.